You were part of the Leafs for a long time, and you've seen living here or being here for work. I mean, it's tough to believe that they could win a Stanley Cup any time in the near future, huh?
Well, they've got their top 6 forwards are tremendous. Like, they've got tremendous upfront ability. I don't like the way the rest of the roster is constructed. I don't think their D's good enough. Muzzin really helps, even though he's hurt right now.
Yeah, that's a tough
But
one
I
to
don't
do.
think their D's good enough, and I don't think they're big enough.
Somebody reminded me online, you were the one to pick Morgan Riley, correct?
Yes.
You had him pegged at number 1.
Yes.
Really?
Let's talk about why you were so high on Morgan Riley. I mean, he's a big piece to this team right now. Of course, they've missed him a little bit in the lineup lately.
Well, his draft year, he got hurt, and he didn't play very much. He played early and then got hurt and didn't play till the very end of the year. He played like 15 games or 11 games or something. And we tripled up the coverage on his games. So we had 4 and 5 scouts that watching all of his games, which is unusual. Usually you don't have more than 1 or 2. And they came back and we had him rated number 1. So that was the draft that Yakupov went number 1, and I think Murray went number 2, and I forget who else.
Galchenyuk went 3.
Galchenyuk was 3, I think.
So you're like, oh my God,
He's dropping to us. Yeah, we were sitting there at the table thinking he's dropping to us. We're going to get a shot.
What a feeling that is, huh?
Yeah.
And then, all right, so when that's happening and the 3rd pick doesn't take him, are you then thinking about calling the 4th if there's a chance that you think they may take him?
We were pretty wired in that.
Okay.
Once Yakupov went, we knew Murray was rated higher by most teams, and Galchenyuk was rated higher by most teams. We thought once Yakupov went, because he was the wild card, because we weren't going to take him. His draft interview was the worst interview I've ever had in my life.
Yakupov's was?
Terrible.
Well, how come?
Jeez.
Because he was defiant and obnoxious and sullen, and so I mean,
I
thought
them quick.
John Lilly, one of our scouts, you know those, I think, right?
Yep.
So John Lilly almost fought him in the interview. So it was not a good interview.
Oh,
Jesus.
But the thing with Morgan Riley is I had a video guy cut every shift that he skated that year, which weren't that many because he only played, like I say, 15 games. I watched every shift he played twice on video. And I'm like, the scouts are right. This kid sees the ice. He skates great. He's a great kid. So
he's thick too.
yeah,
big guy.
It was fortunate for us that went down that way.
I was actually...
That's all. Same thing with Cam Fowler when he got to Anaheim.
Yeah.
He dropped lower than he should have. I walked over to Bob Murray's table. I said, "You're going to get Fowler." And I couldn't believe he dropped that far.
I know he could skate.
Well, I was going to ask you, as a general manager, you're hearing this from your scouts, and you said you added more to the fire. How many times did you get a chance to go see him live, or did you completely rely on their word for it and the video?
Just their word for it in the video. You try not to, if you're going to see Moose Jaw, you try to see them somewhere else. It's not a fun place to go to. People are great. But it's a hard drive in the middle of winter, so you try to see them in Brandon or somewhere closer to Winnipeg, or try and see them in Calgary. You try and scout them, in a better environment. And I'm going to get emails and texts from people in Moose Jaw. The people are lovely, and it's great in the summertime. In wintertime,
You don't want to be there. It's hardcore.
That's a hard drive.
Okay, so that can't be very common that a general manager drafts a guy that high who has not seen him live, correct?
Very rare.
Okay. I was digging for that.
That's also just having a real trust in your staff.
Yep.
It's funny that conversation led to interviews, and I was already thinking ahead to ask without. I am putting you on the spot. Any interviews really stick out to you? I guess you might have said Yakupov being the worst, but any other ones where guys are really surprised you in a good way?
Gabrielle Landeskog.
Yeah, that's no surprise.
He finished his interview, and we wanted to ask him to sit down, help us talk to the other kids. I think he'll be a general manager in the league.
Really?
Yeah, I really do. I really respect him.
The no accent is wild.
Throws you off like
You're
when
like,
you
wait,
fly
you're-
to Denver.
you're-
He's a
his voice
robot.
comes
He's too
over.
perfect.
You're not
Burke.
from Edina,
can't be
Minnesota?
But going way back, I remember when I worked for Pat Quinn, Brad May was probably the best interview we ever did, and he walked out, and we couldn't take him as high as our pick was much higher than he was slotted in. He was slotted in around 10 or 12, and I think we picked second or third his year, whatever. So we couldn't take him, but he walked out of the room, and Pat Quinn turned to me and said, "I got to get another first."
Wow.
Well, I was going to ask
Mayday.
you, so we had Terry Ryan on, and he told a hilarious Mike Milbury grill story about his draft year. Do you GMs kind of chuckle about some of these stories together? Is it like I don't want to say a dick measuring contest, but do you guys play like a little game? Like,
I think I buried that kid today.
Hey, how about this interview?
Well, you know what I try and do, these kids, it's all scripted now. The agents tell them, who's your hero? My dad. Who's your...
So you're not often getting genuine, deep conversation.
No, so the guy comes in and I say, what kind of watch is that? So he's thinking, well, if I say it's a Timex, I'm cheap or we're poor. If I say it's a Rolex, I'm entitled. So now the kid's scrambling. I'm like, relax, I don't care what kind of watch. Or I say, what kind of dog do you have? He's like, well, I better say a Rottweiler, right? It's Brian Burke. And I can't tell him we have a Pekingese or whatever it is. And so the kid's all screwed up. And
right on his heels.
Now he's off the script.
Yeah, you need him to get away from one of those answers.
He's off the prepared answer. So I remember I interviewed Kasperitis, and he came in. He had the sunglasses pushed up, and he sits back And I remember barking at him, "Hey, pay attention here." And I remember when we interviewed Thomas Vanek, we had like the 6th pick in the draft or 8th pick in the draft, and he's like, "Why am I even here? There's no way I'll be there when you guys pick." So he was bored. He's sitting back, and finally I snapped at him. I said, "Hey, listen up, son. Straighten up and start answering the questions. If you know anything about me, I'll move up in the draft for a guy I like. And so far, I don't like you." And he paid more attention after that.
Sometimes
you're like, I'll
wake
move
me
up just to draft you and bury you, fuck. You think I won't fucking bury you?
Oh, shit.
That is unreal. So Vanek, all right. Well, he got a little pee-pee whack and he's back in
and you know what? I liked the rest of his interview. He's impressive. He's a good guy. But
yeah,
he just... The notion that, why am I sitting here wasting a half hour with you guys when I'm going to be long gone on the draft board?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, Burke. Yeah, I was like, please pick me. Please.
I just remember being so nervous. And you do have some sort of script, and when they go off of it, it's panic time. But hey, Vanek, I don't know if you remember, Frozen 4, one of the most dominant performances ever when Minnesota beat UNH, I think.
That was very impressive.
Burke, you just mentioned a guy I wanted to ask you about last time. We never got to it, Pat Quinn. How essential was he to you as your first few days as a front office guy? Was he like a real mentor to you? You guys had a lot in common.
Yeah, I've been lucky. I've had 3. Well, my dad was, so I've had 4. But my dad was my mentor, and I idolized him. He passed away a few years ago, but I've been lucky. I played for Lou Lamoriello for 4 years, and you learn so much from a guy like that. Then I worked for Pat Quinn, then I worked for Gary Bettman, and all 3 of them was a major learning curve. Pat Quinn was one of the finest people that ever walked on this planet, and he was smart, and he was tough, and he was fair. Like when I was a young executive, I wanted to be Pat. I remember that's why I wore cufflinks. I remember I went in one day and Pat says, "What's with the shirts?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I had the tie like this, and I had a black suit on, and I dressed like I did when I was a lawyer. And he says, what's with the shirts? I said, "What's the matter with my shirt?" He goes, "Real men wear cufflinks." So I went back to my office and called a tailor and ordered a bunch of French cuff shirts. That's all I wear now. I wanted to be Pat.